So something that I've always struggled with as a follower of Christ is the idea that I won't ever arrive. Now, I know theologically, I know intellectually that I won't arrive, that I'll still struggle with sin. But there's a part of me that believes that maybe one day I'll get pretty close. Maybe one day I'll be pretty perfect. And my guess is that I'm not alone. My guess is that you might function the exact same way. And the way that we know that we kind of buy this lie that we can arrive is that when we sin, we say things like, God, I can't believe that I did that again. Like I shouldn't be struggling with this. I should be further along. If you feel this sense that you should be further along, then maybe like me, you've bought this idea that one of these days you will arrive. And when that happens, when we feel like that, there's a sense of shame that takes over, and we tend to hide. We tend to hide what we're currently struggling with because we think, I should just be better. I should just be further along. But the more that we understand the grace of God, the more that actually moves in our hearts, we respond in a drastically different way. And I'll show you what I mean. In Psalm 32, David says this in verses 1 and 2. He says, "Blessed is the one whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man against whom the Lord counts no iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no deceit." The Hebrew word for blessed or blessed is a word that's better translated as happy. And so what David's saying here is happy is the person who has no sense of deceit within their spirit. Happy is the person whose sins have been forgiven. Happy is the person who has been completely open and honest about their sin. Why? Because they have experienced the forgiveness of sin. And David then goes to contrast that feeling of being blessed or happy by kind of walking in this spirit of vulnerability with the person and what they feel when they actually hide their sin. And so in verse 3, he goes on to say this. He says, "For when I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me, and my strength was dried up as by the heat of summer." David explains that in the moments that he chooses to be silent, in the moments when he chooses to hide his sin, he says that it's draining. He says, like, it feels like my bones are wasting away. It feels like my strength is dried up as if it's like the hottest summer day imaginable. Translation, hiding is exhausting. It says hiding is exhausting. And maybe you feel that. Maybe you are in a place in life where there is so much sin that you have hidden away for fear that you should be so much further along, or whether it's fear or shame or whatever it might be, you're just hiding. And you're in a place where you are just so tired, where you're tired and you're exhausted. The reality is that you don't have to hide. You don't have to keep those things hidden away. You don't have to feel this consistent pain of exhaustion. Because look what David goes on to say in verse 5. He says, "I acknowledged my sin to you. I did not cover my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the iniquity of my sin." He says, I finally stopped hiding. I stopped hiding. I decided to be open, to be honest, to confess. I brought my sin into the light, and you forgave my sin. And if you remember from verses 1 and 2, what do we know about people whose sin is forgiven? The blessed, the happy is the person whose sins are forgiven. The reality is that because of what Christ has done for us on the cross, we have no reason or no need to hide our current struggles with sin. We understand that we have been forgiven, and that there's never going to be a day where we will arrive until we see Jesus face to face. And so right now, we have this freedom to just confess and be met with the grace because we know what Christ has done. In fact, James 5:16 says, "Confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed." Confess your sins that you may be healed. There's something healing and rejuvenating about bringing our sin into the light. And so tonight, what we want to do is really simple. We want to challenge you to be open and honest with what you currently struggle with, to be open and honest about your current sin struggles. Because the reality is there's no need to be exhausted. There's no need to hide those things away. You can confess, you can be honest, you can bring this into the light, knowing that you will be met with the grace of our Father through community. So may we be a people that are open and honest and confess, knowing that because of Christ, there's no more reason to hide.